Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit, and always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hey everyone, it's September already. The kids are going back to school. We have to get ready for the holidays and all that stuff. Our summer's pretty much behind us. And so I'm very thankful that we have some great episodes that will keep us company and get us back on track and get ready for the holidays and hopefully survive the holidays. We need some tricks of the trade to get us through. And so I want to thank Health Code Get Health, GETHLTH.com, for helping us to have tons of recipes and baked goods, things like that, to get us through the holidays so we can stay healthy and not have to start next year trying to get our pants to fit again and all that kind of stuff. So staying active with them, and also with Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com, for us to track our sugars and ketones and keep us healthy during the holidays. And both have great websites. Even if you're not using their products, I would recommend going to their websites, taking a look at the educational materials, the recipes, and a lot of the blogs. Ben Bickman has been contributing, and so there's a lot of really great information there. But please support them also. They're supporting this podcast and bringing these great stories to you. So I just want to thank my sponsors, and now on with the show. Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD and Life's Best Medicine podcast. This guy's so great. We got him from the other side of the pond, and I think we're going to talk about important stuff. I'm pretty sure. I know for a fact we will, because I know who it is. But Ken is the guy who says, no one is beyond help, no one is beyond hope. And I think that's so true. As long as we're breathing, we're going to go up and down. We're going to hit the low points and then gain weight and lose weight and go through these battles in life. And no one's figured out the game completely yet. Some people have, some people are doing great, but most of us go through struggles, and we go through time periods where it's everyone's birthday and we kind of go off the rails a little bit, or we go through life stress. There's so many factors in this. And one of the experts of the N=1, meaning do whatever works for you and don't worry about what people say, is Ken Armstrong. Ken, you've done this thing, man. It's so great to have you back all the way from Ireland.
Delighted to be back with you.
Tell people in a nutshell, and they could go back and listen to when you were first on.
Cool.
In a nutshell, what's transpired since going back to the beginning and then where we are now?
Yeah, we'll go. Okay, so if we go right the way back, when I first stumbled across Gary Taubes' Why We Get Fat, I was 450 pounds, very overweight, very unfit, very unhealthy. And I kind of just thought, I tried everything, nothing worked. I tried everything I knew: vegetarian, vegan, cabbage diet, whatever you're having. I just couldn't shift the weight, and it wasn't sustainable for me. And I found Gary's podcast, I found Gary's book and various podcasts around, and a lot of reading. And I suppose I just went, well, look, this low carb thing, what can possibly go wrong? The worst that can happen is that it'll be the same as before, and it hasn't worked. So over the course, that's 2011, over the course of the next 2 years, I guess, I lost 175 pounds. I put myself in a much better position. I was fitter and healthier. I was cycling and walking and doing all great stuff. And then, for whatever reason, it all went a bit pear-shaped. I think I got too overconfident. I got a bit cocky with it all. Thought I could have anything, so I went back onto carbs, and I remember having Christmas cake. I think that's when it started. I had a Christmas cake, and it was like ping, the everything in my brain just lit up, and I just managed to put like 100 odd pounds back on without even just I just one of the things you learn when you get good at this, or when you at least get experienced at it, is like if you fall off the horse, just get back on. The problem is if you don't get back on, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's kind of what happened. And then um and then really I just took I got to the point where I realized it was all going wrong, and I then took another hard look at myself. I reread Gary's book. By this time, the Low Carb MD podcast was around, and Diet Doctor, and these sort of things to help, great tools to help me. And then I was back into the and also Jason Fung. I must call that out because I started intermittent fasting, and then lost that 125 more. So now I'd lost 175, put back on 100, taken off 125, and then I thought I was doing okay, and I was eating well as far as I was concerned. But my wife had noticed that. She said, you were getting thinner and now you're not." And
Yeah, that's a nice
this,
way of saying it, Ken. She's a diplomat.
yeah, she
You're
is.
getting thinner now, you're not.
And I think I started to put a little bit of weight back on. And I probably put on, I don't know, maybe 40 pounds,
And
ish.
this was even doing low carb, so you weren't cheating a lot or,
No, I
carb
was looking
creep type
after my
stuff.
sugar. I was looking after my sugar. I was a low carb. I was sticking to. I was doing intermittent fasting, and eating well, what I thought was well. And I reel on to this year, and I started to feel very poorly before Easter. I can't really explain what it was. It was like indigestion, and I just thought I was just feeling under the weather. I had a couple of days off work, and I just seemed to be struggling with it a bit. And then the week before Easter, so the Monday before Good Friday, if that makes sense, I woke up and I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I'm done. I couldn't move. I was a weight on my chest like I'd never felt, I'd never experienced. I was scared. I was restless. That's what actually, normally, if you get a little bit of indigestion, you're like, oh, it'll go. I'll have a mint or something. I'll have
Yeah, tap
some,
your chest a little bit and then burp
yeah,
it
and
out.
it'll be good.
There you go.
But no, no, it wouldn't have it. And what really scared me was I got restless. I got very not couldn't sit down, couldn't stand up, couldn't lay down, couldn't do anything. And my wife knew I was ill because that was the only morning, the first morning in probably 5 years that I'd never walked the dogs. Even during COVID, I'd had COVID and I walked a route, circuitous route that didn't have anybody that could meet me. Had COVID and walked the dogs, but when I got to this point, I couldn't walk them, and she said that's very unusual. And she went out, and for some reason, I just got scared that I was on my own, and I called an ambulance, and so the ambulance came half an hour later, and they just carted me in, and I thought I was dying. They put an ECG on me. They'd um, they'd done everything to try and just to make sure that it wasn't a heart attack. And then so I was in I was in the emergency room for that day. So I was in at 8:30 in the morning. I was there all that day, and when I finally got into a bed, the doctor came around and he said, "Well, we think it's your gallbladder. Um, we're going to do some more tests." And they did some more tests. They did. By the way, my liver enzyme count was just through the roof, thousands that it should have been dozens, and it was thousands. And they said, "Look, we think it's your gallbladder." So they did some more tests, and it turned out that I had indeed got gallstones, but I'd also one of the stones, it seems, the small ones had dropped into my pancreas and infected my pancreas. So I had pancreatitis and
Yeah, they call that
gallstones.
gallstone pancreatitis, where it blocks
Right.
the pancreas can't
Yeah.
put all the digestive enzymes in. Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
exactly what happened. And so I was 5 days nil by mouth, IV antibiotics. They were concerned about sepsis. Um, so I was in a pretty, but it gave me a long time to reflect on what what had gone on there. And
And you even
I
send a
was in,
tweet out saying that, go, look, I'm stuck in the hospital. Look, I did this
yeah,
to myself, basically, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
I did.
most people aren't showing the low points of life. That's what I love about you is going, look, here's where I'm at. Like not saying, everyone shows pictures of being on vacation and the best
Yeah,
meal they had, but not when the kid throws up on them.
no, and I think it was a reflection of how I felt at the time. I was very sick and I was very, and I realized that probably I hadn't been looking after myself properly. But interestingly, if nothing else, what happened was it was a point in the sand where I'm very good when I backed into a corner. So and also when I know the rules, once you've got a gallbladder full of gallstones, you just have to alter your diet. You have to, because if you eat too much fat, it'll cause you no end of problem. And so basically, when
And
I got home,
let me just step in just from a doctor perspective because I've looked at some of the data on this stuff too. Is a very commonly when people go on a low fat, like all those other diets you talk about, you can form gallstones. If you want a high fat diet, those gallstones start giving you issues because now your gall because when you're not eating fat, your gallbladder doesn't have to squeeze and put all of its enzymes out into the gut.
yeah,
So when you do that, then you have gallstones, then you go on a low carb ketogenic diet. Now you start squeezing all that stuff and then you shove it down into the duct and now you get a problem. And people don't realize if you have big gallstones sitting there, they usually they're if they're like golf ball size, they're not going to go down into that duct it can't, but the small little,
yeah,
pebble sized ones are the ones that really cause damage. Yeah.
yeah, and that's
So
exactly
sometimes when
what
we're
happened.
shaking down those gallstones, we can cause a problem. So sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt, but yeah, that
no,
going on a high fat diet or eating fried foods and stuff is very classical where you're going to get that right upper quadrant pain and
yeah.
be uncomfortable
And in fact,
and
the doctor said he's not now. In fairness, he, he's a consultant in that area, but he did say to me, he said, look, it is possible that your massive weight loss twice at this stage could have contributed to that. I hadn't even
absolutely. Yeah,
really
we see
occurred
that
to that.
too. Weight loss and weight gain and weight loss and weight gain, it does contribute for sure. Yeah, and a
So,
lot of times people get it when they're eating healthier. They're like, when I was eating terrible food, it didn't happen. Now it happens, right?
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
perfect storm, exactly what happened there. And so anyway, normally what would happen if you go in Ireland, you'd go into hospital, and about 4 weeks later, they'll get you right, they'll get the infection under control, they'll send you home, and in 4 weeks' time, they'll take the gallbladder out. But at that point, I was still a BMI of 40, so I had to look. Now, when I left the hospital, he said to me, "We're going to do the op, but you need to lose a bit of weight." I went, okay, that's fine. I understand. So I worked hard at it. I cut down. Obviously I knew I'd got gallstones, so I couldn't eat too much fat. I'd stayed on my low carb. I didn't really go down as far as keto at that point. I think I stick with low carb a little bit. And yeah, it at that point, I went back to see him a month later, thinking I'd lost, I think, 5 kilos or 10 kilos. So it's what, 22 pound. And I thought, I'm in, just put the appointment for me. And he said, well, actually, we really need another £100 because you have to get your BMI under 30, which, because the anaesthetist doesn't like doing stuff like that if you're too big. Now, I'm sure
Yeah,
if
and
it
that's
was
a hard
emergency,
thing.
they'd do it. But
Yeah, that's a hard thing. Sometimes when they set the bar that high, it's stressful when you go, screw it. I can't do it. I can't lose 100 pounds. It's too much. I've been doing this all this time. And so sometimes they just shut people down that way. And the other thing you said, I just wanted to touch on because it struck me when you said it. It's like you're having this chest pain, you think you're dying, and it takes half an hour for them to get to you, and that's if it was the real thing, you go, okay, what would my outcome have been? Not very good.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and that's a hard thing. And around the world, we're seeing this where people just can't get it. It's not just socialized medicine or unsocialized medicine. It's the problem of we have too many sick people and not enough workers. So
Yeah.
our resources are stripped, and that's a scary thing. And I just had a conversation yesterday. A patient was upset because her primary had sent her off to a psychiatrist for evaluation of depression without treating her or talking to her. Said, "I'm gonna send you to psychiatry. 6 month wait.
Yeah.
If you're depressed and suicidal,
Yeah.
6 month is, or if someone wants to give up alcohol, it's like a 6 month wait to get into a rehab center now. It's like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
by then they're going to be
Yeah.
drinking themselves to death, and, or someone like going through what you're going through.
Yeah.
You can't put it off. You gotta address these things quickly, and that this is a part of our. If we stay healthier, then the system is not as
Yeah.
stripped of resources. So, anyways, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Ken,
So
go back.
no. So the plan was I now knew what I needed to do. I needed to lose another. I needed to lose 100 pounds again, third time. But they did say to me, you'll have to be. So they said it's a bit of a contradiction. They said you have to lose 100 pounds, but don't lose it too quickly because
Yeah,
otherwise
yeah,
you might hurt
exactly.
the gallstones. And it's like, and then I had a dietitian which I engaged myself just to keep me honest. My private healthcare gave me an opportunity to have free, not the free, you paid for them already, but your dietitian um session. So I took him on once a month just to keep myself honest, really, just so I had a third party that didn't know me really, but I was able to do that. And he said to me, look, really, you shouldn't be losing more than 1 or 2%, 1%, he said, per week of your body mass to give yourself a chance to avoid worsening the gallstones. So anyway, so the plan was I knew I couldn't then eat fat anymore. Butter, oil, any of the good stuff that I used to eat because I was eating a lot of fat. Because I always assumed sugar was the enemy. It is the enemy, but it's got a friend called fat. And I know that's a controversial subject in the keto low carb world. It is.
Well,
In fact,
let's do blasphemy for a minute. Joan Iflin has data on fat being addictive, right? By itself, with not just with sugar like a donut or a cookie, but fat itself being addictive for people. So people will take in more and more fat.
yeah,
And I think it's such a great topic because us in the low carb, and I hear it all the my friend Tro, he'll argue with people. And I have some people in my practice, I'm telling you that their insulin's normal, their triglycerides, their lipids, everything's normal on them and they weigh 350, 400, 500
yeah,
pounds. That is a calorie issue at that point. Most of us are metabolically sick, like 90, just only about 93% of us are metabolically sick. So we have to fix that metabolic problem and then we can work on the calorie problem, right? But
yeah,
sometimes, a lot of people, they're like, I'm keto, so I'm eating, as I had a lady yesterday, she goes, I'm eating a stick of butter every day. I'm like, does that seem like that's a normal thing for you to just eat a
yeah,
stick of butter sitting there? Like you're gonna get your ketones.
yeah,
She goes, my ketones have been great. I go, have you lost weight? No. I'm like, well, who cares about your ketones at that
yeah,
point, right?
yeah,
Because then you're not burning your own body fat at some point. So I know it's controversial, but it's not, and I think it's an n of one because some people eat a higher fat diet and they lose weight, and it may be. And I haven't really really got great answers on this. But Siobhan Huggins, who goes on a high fat diet, she has lipidema, which is public knowledge, and she talks
mhm,
about it a lot. She loses weight on a higher fat diet. If she eats a high protein diet, she doesn't lose weight. Now you are a different creature, and you go, okay, when I cut out my fat, I lose weight. And part of it's there's more calories in fat
yeah.
than there is in protein, and protein is not a great energy source.
No, but we're not allowed to use the C word. We're not. It's banned. We're not allowed to call them that. Calories are banned. But it is. I don't know if it's a fact, but definitely what I did
Well, you could
learn
call
when
it
I
mass in or mass out. Dr.
energy. I
Eats
like
talks about it.
energy.
Yeah,
I like
energy. Yeah, it's
energy
energy.
because I think I tweeted not long afterwards that I'd read the PE diet, Ted Naiman's PE diet, and I thought some of it was controversial in my mind, and it has been controversial in some minds in the low carb community. But actually, I get it now. Energy is fat is energy, and you can't have too much in your body, and you can't have bring in that much in. So I didn't really get what Ted was at until now, where I realized what he's talking about. So reducing the fat. So I'm effectively on a low fat, low carb diet. I stick to salmon, which is obviously got a bit more natural fat in it, saturated fat. I stick to chicken, to turkey, seafood, fiber, still no carbs, no bread, no potatoes, no any of that sort of stuff. No fries, no nothing. Just green and green salad, veg, and meat, and that's and if anyone's vaguely interested, it's probably at about 1,200 calories a day, but I don't really
And
count that.
yeah, and I would say, Ken, too, when you're cutting back on your fat intake, addiction stuff drops down, right? If you, and you've said it yourself, like food addiction, you had some Christmas cake and then boom, you're off for,
Yeah,
4 months or something. The people who do carnivore and vegetables without having the keto treats and keto snacks and all that, they seem to do better. And I think it's because of that, because you're not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm going to keep eating steak until I throw up. But if I give you your
yeah,
favorite dessert, you might do that. Rob Sivas
yeah,
has talked about that. And a lot of us know that inherently. If something's too hyper palatable, it's a struggle for those of us who
yeah,
deal with weight issues.
yeah. And to be honest, my wife said to me, she said I blame that keto lark. And I went, well, actually, I blame myself for allowing I used keto to feed my fat habit. But so in a way, I don't feel that, as you said, the keto diet works perfectly well for most people. I still can have days where I'm under 50 grams of carbohydrate, so that's fine. But actually, um, I was misusing in the cloak of keto. I was actually doing exactly what you were saying about the patients there of eating too much fat, and because it was keeping my sugars under control, my triglycerides were fine. All of that was great. I was thinking I was doing well, but I wasn't, and I wasn't looking at the whole picture. And
And you
maybe,
weren't having results, even though you're doing the right thing. And I think you make so many good points. One is like, we're not just all gluttons and lazy and sit around all day. You're walking the countryside, you're walking every day, you're doing all the stuff that you need to do. And when you don't get the results, it gets very frustrating. You're like, okay, what do I do? Give up or do I pull a lever? Do I change something? Do I throw in a little bit more intermittent fasting? Do I cut back on the fat intake? Because the problem is this, it is really, and I see it. I was just at a conference and, you know, people say, well, if you eat too much protein, you're going to kill your kidneys. If you don't eat enough protein, you're not going to have any muscle and you're going to die. Everything is so stressful. It's like, well, what the heck do I eat? Carbs,
yeah,
obviously, they're saying they're not necessary and they're bad. So do I go up on my fat or do I go up on my protein? And I think that's where the wisdom of dialing in and go, okay, I'm eating a lean protein. Some people hedge their bets. And the other thing that's been popular, and I haven't heard much about it recently, but several people talk about doing a protein sparing modified fast where you eat a lot of protein and cut your fat out a few days a week and see what happens. And it makes sense. I mean, stepping back just in defense of what we're talking about, like Tro and I have talked about this at length. And when we have someone who comes in who's super metabolically sick, high sugars, insulin's in the 60s or something like that, the only lever we really have to pull is get rid of the carbohydrates and then go up on the fat intake because fat is not going to raise the insulin levels.
yeah,
The problem is you can't do that forever. If you're losing weight, and our people lose weight, well, mostly because you're dropping your insulin, you're peeing out extra salt and all this fluid you're holding on to, right? But adding in the exercise and activity, and over time, once that insulin gets low enough, now you can get your own fat stores. The problem is when that insulin's super high, you can't get
yeah,
to your fat stores. So some of
yeah,
those people will go on a high protein, low fat diet, and their sugars go crazy. And you go,
yeah,
okay, we can't do that. I'm not going to put you on more mess. So there is some there is some logic to what we do. And then you go, okay, after the first 3 or 4 weeks, because we tell people, Tro says the same thing as I do, is like, don't worry about the weight for the first month. We're trying to get your metabolic stuff right. Then we could worry about calorie pulling and doing whatever. But if we can get that insulin down and you get your
yeah,
fat stores all the time, and Ken, from experience, is that once you get your insulin level down, you go, I'm not starving all day long. I don't have to
yeah,
eat like 6 times a day. And you start
yeah,
feeling better. And then you say, oh, I feel like exercising now,
yeah,
or I feel like fasting, or I skipped lunch and I wasn't even hungry. It was no big deal. So these people who say, I'm never going to fast, all of a sudden are eating 2 meals a day, right? Instead of
yeah,
6 meals a day.
yeah,
And so that all adds up. And those are all calories too, by the way, or energy, whatever we want to call it. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to make an argument to say if I have a patient who's eating, you know, 6,000 calories of butter a day versus someone who's eating 1,000 calories or 2,000 calories of a balance of a more protein, less fat. Who do you think's going to do better in the long run?
yeah, exactly,
Right? It's
exactly.
energy still. It's still
Yeah,
energy, but we
yeah,
have to fix the metabolic component. That's what
Yep.
people miss. And that's when they say, well, just calories in, calories out. Well, I'll tell you, I have a guy who's not sleeping, stressed, worried about mom. He gains 23 pounds in a year. He had never gained a pound in 19 years. So
Yeah.
you're telling me all of a sudden this guy became a glutton and lazy? No, he's stressed and not sleeping. So all these things play a role.
Of course they do. Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's been really interesting. It's been fantastic journey for me this time because you do. It's a pleasure to hit the scales, and I only check once a week. I do that because I want to monitor where I am. Um, so the idea is I'm now 20 short. I think the last count I had just under between 80 and 90 pounds lost this time round since April, and I've got another 20 to lose, and then I'll be in a position for the consultant to do the work. And that's we think that's going to be around Halloween. And then I've got a whole new journey of learning to live without a gallbladder. But effectively what I've been doing is doing that now. I'm learning to live without a gallbladder because I just trained myself to only eat stuff that doesn't annoy it at the minute.
Yeah, and the gallbladder may be a blessing in disguise because it got you to
Yeah,
change what you were doing, right? You,
did.
you never want to say like ending up in the hospital having all these problems, but you go, okay, look, what I'm doing isn't working. So I've heard that before. People say, well, I remember one person back in the day, he was like, yeah, noni juice. It was noni juice he was drinking all the time. I go, why do you drink that? Well, it prevents all cancer and stuff. But then he got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he's, I'm just going up on my noni juice. I go, you've been drinking this for years and you got cancer. So it's probably not going
Yeah,
to cure it if you're doing the same
yeah,
thing. So
yeah,
sometimes you have to step back and go, yeah, maybe my thinking's off here. Like you have to
yeah.
use logic and go, okay, I end up in the hospital. I'm not doing well. For me, it may not be great, but
But
Sean
we get
Baker may
into
be able to eat
habits,
this way.
don't we? We get into habit. One of the things is that not to look at the time in the hospital gave me time to think about what I was doing, looking at this, do I need to eat that much ribeye steak? Do I need to eat that much fatty foods? And I mean, I am a meat eater. I love meat, but I have to be cautious with it now. I have chosen to avoid red meat. I know that's another heresy that I'll be don't at me, guys. I don't care.
We're
Um,
building the fire. We have a steak and fire for you.
thank you. Yeah, but I've stuck with white meat and fish and seafood because it works for me, and that's to me is the better. While it's working, great. What happens afterwards? That's another whole story, and that'll come afterwards. But for the moment, I'm really proud of this piece of work, and I suppose it's just taught me that you've got to look at yourself again. And I think I might have said that when I did the low carb podcast back a couple of years ago. I think you just have to keep looking at yourself. Um, and it is hard. It is hard to break a habit, and even if it's what you think is a good habit, you still need to sometimes break it, and sometimes it needs, as you say, it needs an intervention from outside. You know, um, call it a come to Jesus moment, if you will, but it's what it is. You go right. Okay, I can't continue to live like this. My body doesn't let me live like this anymore, so I've got to change. Um, and it's
If it
worked.
was working, if it was working and you didn't have gallstones and everything else was good, you keep doing what you're doing, right? But it wasn't working before you had the gall. If it was working and you're losing weight and your gallstone's active, then you go, okay, you're kind of in a bad situation, right? But
Yeah,
when it's not working, you go, okay, I got to pull a different lever. And I will tell you, if you were sitting down right now and I was Sean Baker, I wish I was sometimes, but that's besides the point. But Sean Baker would look at you and go, hey, you're eating fish and you feel better? Great, go for it. If you're eating a
yeah,
salad and you feel better, great, go for it. He's not a hardcore guy. He goes, hey, what works for you? Ultimately, we all get that. I want my patients to be happy and healthy. I don't want
yeah,
them to be having to eat red meat when they don't like it, or eat fish if they're allergic to fish. You've kind of figured it out, and what you've done is like you've run the gambit, right? You've looked all over and you've gone up and down and up and down and all that stuff, and so
yeah,
you realize, okay, this isn't working anymore. I gotta pull a lever, and that's
yeah,
what makes you successful in life. And with anything,
yeah,
if you're losing money every month in your business, you go, okay, I got to change something. I either got to start advertising, or I got to get out there more
yeah,
and talk, or
yeah,
show up to work, whatever it might be. So some people just like everything's going bad. They go, everything's going bad, but I'm not changing anything. It's like, well, that's how you crash your plane. The pilot has
Yeah,
to make course
yeah,
corrections all the time.
yeah. But um, I think that satiety, it's been a lot talked about that, and I think adding fiber back in for me, only for me, has been a real winner. I mean, even adding things in like celery, right? For example, and adding in peppers, red fresh peppers, like raw. They just, for me, that fibrous stuff has helped me. I probably would have skipped it before. I would have quite happily had steak and eggs, and if that works for you, rock on. But it wasn't working for me in the end. It did work when I was 450 pounds, but it didn't work when I was 300, and and couldn't get below that, or kept going up and back down. So,
Well,
and
and Ken, I'm
my
sorry.
wife said to me, my wife said to me, she said, "You always said that sugar was your beast, but actually it might be that it was fat." And I went, "Could be."
Could be both, and it could be, and the other reality that you did is when you lose weight, your metabolic rate slows down, right? It just does. That's a fact. We know that from studies. And because if you're not carrying that extra 100 pounds around with you, you can't do when you did when you were 100 pounds heavier. So when you're
Yeah,
450 pounds is a different beast than when you're 300 pounds. As we get metabolically healthier, and that's what's so critical is people say, well, is this good or bad? I'm like, where are you at metabolically? Because if I have someone whose insulin's normal, their triglycerides, all this is good, and they're a triathlete, I'll say liberalize your carbs. You're fine. It's not going to hurt you to go up on
yeah,
your sweet potato intake and things like that because you're stressing your system because you're so lean and this lean mass hyper responders that you and I will probably never have to worry about. But
yeah.
I have to as for my patients. But you go, okay, it takes a long time to get to that point. Most of us are never going to achieve that if
No,
93% of us are metabolically sick. So it's really playing the odds and saying, okay, I have to pull a different lever. And that's what I like about what you've done. And not only that is that you share your journey of saying, hey, look, I gained all this weight, I lost this weight again. And you share it all along instead of just waiting to, hey, guess what? I lost 150 pounds again. It's like, what happened in the interim? I'm just showing the end of the movie. I want to see the whole movie so I
yeah,
know I
yeah.
have everything in context.
Well, I think it just helps. I hope it helps people who fall off. I think that's the thing. It's easy to, as you said earlier on, you go, "Oh well, it's all too much. I can't lose that. It's impossible. So I'll give up." And if anything, one thing I have in bundles is resilience. Clearly, because I wouldn't be able to keep coming back to the well. But I think what I'm trying to do is to try and find, and it'll be an interesting time. We're just getting to sort of fall here now. I know it's only August, but in fall it starts to get a bit colder now, and we will find that things, your body ancestrally is going to change, and maybe I won't get away with having rocket and tomatoes and salad through October and November, but I'm going to have to find another way, and maybe we go back to broccoli and cauliflower, or we go back to other things, leeks or whatever, to try and to even that out. So I'm trying to think about the stumbling blocks before they come. I'm not over analyzing, I don't think, but I do have to think about what happens if this happens, what happens if that happens, and then I can at least have some plan, because on occasions I've just gone into it and then not had a plan. I think that's a good lesson. And yeah, I've made mistakes, and I think it's important that you let people know that, because it's easy, as you say, the Instagram world these days. It's nice shot, everyone's having a fab time. Well, not always. Sometimes it can be really hard and very upsetting and very depressing, and you have to go, look, I know I'm doing the best I can at this moment, but it's not always good enough, and you have to kind of just work it through and say, as you said, pull another lever, pull another way of doing it, look at it yourself. And I've made those mistakes, I don't know how many times, but at least I think now I'm on the right track for the moment. But life happens in between, and something will happen, you know and you just have to be ready for that.
Yeah, and just having the nutritionist every month following with you, keeping
Yeah,
accountability, having someone in your corner who understands what they're doing, that makes a difference. And a lot of what Tro and I do, it's really the community. The community is critical because when you
yeah,
think I'm the only one who's only losing, 1 pound a week or whatever, uh, and you have so far to go sometimes. And so you okay, 1 pound a week in 8 weeks is going to be, 10, 12, 14 pounds.
yeah,
That's a good thing. It's being patient with it and relaxing and not being so. What I find for sure is the people who are so worried about losing weight quickly do the worst. They do the
yeah,
worst because they're
yeah,
stressed and worried. They weigh themselves 5 times a day and they're checking every macro and they're going, go out and
yeah,
laugh, go out and sit on the porch and
yeah,
have your coffee and
yeah,
breathe in life for a minute because you have to enjoy the journey too. And I think that's part of what you did is, going on these long walks and thinking. And I know you've been on, thinking spiritually. Like when you get chest pain and you're laying there, you go, okay, what do I believe right now? Right. I mean,
yeah,
that's a point where you go, okay, what happens to me if I die? Right. Those things we don't think about until something happens
yeah.
most of the time.
It's changed me. It's changed me. I don't put up with as much nonsense. Perhaps I'm a bit more. I know I wouldn't say I'm less forgiving. I just more. I can't be dealing with BS. I think when you get to the point where you think I'm actually done, that life's too short for BS.
Well, I'll tell you, Ken, I've been looking at there's a book called Cured I just listened to. And because I'm curious about these things, like how does someone have metastatic cancer? I just met, I'm having them on next week, as a matter of fact, Maggie Jones, who had metastatic lung cancer. Stage 4, they go, okay, make peace at home and all this stuff. And she quits her job, watches her stresses. I'm not worrying about all the details anymore. Like if you're dying, who cares who gets elected next in a year or two, right? You don't care
Yeah,
anymore. So it seems like that's a common denominator. Some people go for a religious, healing somewhere, or some people go for veganism, some people go for carnivore, but what they have in common is they're all in. They go, I'm all in. I'm not giving up. I'm going to do something about it, and I'm not going to worry about the details. Like what you just said is so critical because you go, okay, I'm going to go for my walk today, and you're not saying, okay, let me calculate exactly how many calories did I burn, how many,
no,
feet did I climb. If you're curious about it is one thing, but if you're stressed and doing it for that reason, even there's studies, Ken, of people who help each other. They help other people, but they don't want to. They feel like obligated and they don't get the same physiologic benefit as people say, I want to go help that guy down the street.
yeah,
It really has to do with our motivation and how we look at life and really counting your blessings 5 minutes a day or something, and
yeah,
saying, okay, it's
yeah,
not such a terrible place. I get to talk to Ken this morning, so I'm happy to wake up and
yeah.
talk to you for an hour,
It's
right?
funny. I re-engaged with the swimming. That's been really interesting. I go to my local pool. It's 15 miles away, and I go 3 times a week, and I do about 40 minutes or so. But it's just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it was funny last week. This is going to sound really sort of very backyardsy, but I was mowing the lawn, which I also enjoy doing. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's a mindful. All that matters is you, the grass, the mower, the lines. Swimming is just up and down, up and down. It's actually, to me, it's quite mindful. To some people, that'd be like, oh my God, that's a terrible waste of everyone's time. But I actually find it really therapeutic. And it's my mindful half hour that I can't get reading or listening to a podcast or watching the TV or even out walking. I just find those two exercises put me in, I think they call it flow. I don't, they call it that sense of flow where you're thinking
Flow
about
or
nothing else.
Yeah,
Flow.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's flow or alpha state, right? There's something I use in my practice called alpha stim that puts your brain into like a meditative state where you
Yeah.
relax and you go, okay. Because so many people, and it's really important to know this, are on sympathetic overdrive all the time. Like you're all like, I got to be here at this meeting. I got to be. That's how I was for all those years in my old practice. It was
Mm.
always constant stress, and you don't even. So when you relax, you feel guilty because you should be doing something because you shouldn't be relaxing or being not doing something. So swimming for 45 minutes. Some people it's yoga that shuts their brain down. Some people it's prayer, meditation,
Yeah.
helping someone else. You forget about your stuff for a while and forgetting about it helps. And what you're saying is really key is that you're not saying, okay, I got to exercise because I'm going to be burn these calories. I really want to just be me in the water. Like people do cold plunges, like you're not thinking about paying your taxes when you're there. You're in
No.
survival mode when you're in that cold. And then you get relaxation afterwards, or going in
Yeah.
the sauna, the same thing. I mean, you can't send emails from the sauna. It's kind
Yeah.
of challenging. I'm sure someone's figured out how to do that. But sometimes it's not the necessarily the sauna or the cold plunge. It's really just shutting down for a few minutes and saying, okay, I'm not going to worry about
Yeah.
the world for 10 minutes or whatever. Like
Yeah.
when I'm in Arizona right now, when I'm here, I don't look at Twitter hardly at all. I don't look at stuff. I'm just enjoying the moment. I want to get up early and see the sunrise. And I want to go for a bike ride or go do something that I don't get to do all the time. So I
Yeah.
think like when you going through when I see you walk in the countryside, I was like, oh, I'm so glad Ken sent that, posted that because, we need to take a second and go, wow, look how beautiful that is. Let's just not
Yeah.
worry about, you know,
Yeah,
conflict
because
on Twitter.
I walked past three farms, and uh, I see the calves, and then they get bigger, and then so you build up a relationship with the countryside. I know that sounds a bit sort of woo woo probably, and a bit sort of hippie, but you do, and I'll be honest, I used to wear headphones and I used to listen to podcasts. I now do that in the car because I actually enjoy just listening to the bird song or nothing else. You just got nothing to have to cloud your mind. And I find that I do that. And what was happening was when I first started the swimming, I actually did it in the morning. So I did walk the dogs, went swimming, went to work. And actually I was just stressing myself out, man. It was just nightmare. So I changed to doing the walking the dog in the morning and then I swam in the evening. And what that did was is it made me I've never not wanted to go. There were a few times where I'd be walking the dogs in the morning going, I don't fancy the swimming this morning. I really just don't. I know I don't feel well enough. Don't feel a bit tired. I'm just procrastinating. Whereas now I walk the dog, I have my coffee, I go to work, I work from home and all work from the office. I started going into the office again because I wanted to meet more people again. I'm in the office this afternoon, actually. Friday afternoon. That's a bit of a treat for me. Very unusual. But so yeah, it's. I just find that all of that helps me to, and I think I've found a level of peace. And I think being in hospital, it's quite difficult to navigate your way through that. And I probably don't make much sense with that, but I think there's a I learned to enjoy my own company again because you haven't got really many people around. You've got two people on either side who are in various forms of asleep or not or whatever. I just learned to spend the day just sitting there, taking it all in, thinking about things, but not really it allowed me to feel peace with myself, if that doesn't sound too
No, yeah,
hippie.
you're 100%. There's a difference between being lonely and being alone, right? So if you're
Yeah,
alone and you're at peace, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people, you're like you're saying, going to the office on Friday afternoon, you like to engage with people and all those things. And so that's critically important. I just gave a talk on Roseto, Pennsylvania, and basically these guys weren't having heart attacks at the rate of everyone else, and they looked at their cholesterol was the same as everyone else. They were eating Italian food and blasphemy again, pasta and bread and all that kind of stuff, but they weren't dying. And it turns out they had community. 85% of the people were involved with community outreach. They were doing, they were going to church, they were doing lawn bowling, they were knitting, they were going to choir practice, whatever it was, they were all engaged. And the grandparents lived with the parents and lived with the grandkids. And so they had three generations in one household.
mm,
It's like when our dog gets old, we buy a new puppy and they play together and the old dog gets young again. That's what happened there, and then they
yeah,
lost that. Now their mortality is the same as everywhere else, right? But for 7 years they looked at these people thinking, what in the world? They didn't exercise more. They weren't doing anything different than anyone else, except they loved each other and took care of each other and watch out
yeah,
for each other because they had to because they were discriminated against for being Italian after World War II. It wasn't real popular. So you start looking, it's like, hey, if we can band together and accept our differences. If you're saying, "Hey, I feel better eating fish," and I go, "No, you have to eat red meat," like, okay, like you're out of
yeah,
the tribe. And that's what happens sometimes. We get so caught up in that, but we
yeah,
we forget like we got to support each other. Say, "Hey, great, if it's working for you, maybe I'll try it." Hey, that
yeah,
sounds good. Because stepping out, it takes a lot of courage to step out and go, "That's not working for me. What you guys are all doing." It's hard
yeah,
to do that for
yeah,
me. I'm not telling all of you go not like if you go out now
No,
and
it
tell
is.
everyone you stop what you're doing and it's working for them, they're gonna look at you like you're an idiot too, right?
Yeah, it's for me. It works for me because it was interesting. I really enjoy your commentary or your logging of your trips to Guatemala, where your outreach, where you're, people in very difficult situations are just getting on with life. And the joy you see in that is, and the joy that you receive from it is, it's really heartwarming when I see that
Yeah,
in
thanks.
a
No, I
difficult
love it.
situation.
And our team, it's always amazing. Someone is used in a way that they never thought they would be. They were like, I'm not a medical person. What am I going to do there? And they're like, boom, they have the same life experience as someone there. And that person, like, that is the person they needed to see. And they happen to come from whatever, New York or Texas or California. So, yeah, there's a lot to that. And I think just being kind. I mean, people ask me that. They go, oh, you're so nice going. I go, no, I'm selfish because I get so much reward going. I do when I come back. As a matter of fact, I talked about blasphemy again. I talked about it a couple times. I don't know if you heard me say it, but I was there. We had, I had a new team. 85% of the people were new. And so I wanted to build relationships. So I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I never do a one meal a day. And so then we had the little Guatemalan dessert. Every once in a while, they go, here, have a mango. I picked it from my tree doctor. You say you're there and you go, okay, I'm here for a week. I'll get back on track when I get home. I'll do a Jason Fung fast for a few days, something. So I get home and I lost almost 6 pounds. I'm like, how can that? Drinking wine at night with the guys and telling jokes and but I'll tell you, I laugh like we were laughing like we couldn't
Yeah,
breathe, right? And you're getting loved on by people, and everyone's appreciative. Every patient gives us a hug and thanks us, and you have a human connection. That lowers your stress hormones and cortisol. So if you're what I'm getting at is if you're stressed and tense and hate the world and you're bitter all the time,
yeah,
you can eat the best low carb diet you want, and it's not going to help you as much. It's not going to be as effective. So you might as well go out and have fun.
yeah,
And whenever I read studies on oxytocin and all the chemicals that lower our stress levels, they say, well, pharma needs a pill for that. It's like, well, the people in Rosetto didn't have pills for that. They just hung out together and laughed and told jokes about grandpa, right?
yeah,
Like those
yeah,
kind of things. You go, okay, enjoy life and take a breath. And that's a lesson for me because for so long I had my foot on the accelerator full speed, with saying I can't slow down or I'm gonna lose the race. At
yeah,
some point you go, okay, I lose the race, big deal. Does lose
yeah.
sometimes losing the race, you win the race, if you know what I'm saying.
The life's too short for, I've said that twice now. Life's too short for being, I might be less tolerant of BS, but I also think I'm more mindful of other people. I found that people say, "Oh, you're like you." They say, "Oh, you're very kind. You're very helpful," and it's one of my needs. My need is to be helpful. That is one of those things. If you, I think it's, is it they call it the love language, or I can't remember the book now. There
Yeah,
was
the
a,
five love languages. Yeah, yeah.
and to be helpful is one of mine because I just want to be helpful. I just want to be needed, and I want to be able to do things. So when I can satisfy that in various forms, one of which is tweeting good things, tweeting bad things, tweeting things that are not going well for me. It just means that people go, "Oh right, so Ken's suffering with that too. That's good. It's not a disaster. No, it's not a disaster." And and I just think if you're more conscientious of your own time and how you project yourself, that makes a big difference. As Jordan Peterson says, stand up tall, pull your shoulders back, just be project yourself better. And I think that losing weight helps people with that. I've seen that with people that we've seen lose hundreds of pounds, and you can see it's not just about their weight they've lost; it's their demeanor, their deportment, the way they look, the way they you can see it through the picture that they look so much more confident, and that's addictive too.
Yeah, and all those things. And I think what you said is that you have perseverance, that you just keep going forward one step at a time. You just be patient because we're not patient people. We want to microwave everything. We don't want to like do a slow cooker. We want it right now. I'm like, well, then think about it a year ago and you'll have it right now. I'm like, you can't. So I tell my guys who they go, oh, I want a bunch of testosterone. I want all these things to get strong and fast. I go, okay, Have you ever grown a tree before? Like you're not going to get oranges tomorrow if you plant the seed today. It's going to take a little while. You got to be patient with that. You can't force that tree to grow faster than it's
Yeah,
going to, and you're not going to lose. Like if you have 100 pounds to lose, you go, okay, I'm not going to lose it in a day. You got to be patient and say, okay, it's a journey, and accept that, and go, okay, today I'm going to make good choices. And if I blow it today, my journey gets longer. If I don't blow it today, my journey gets a little shorter. So you kind of figure those things out, and but enjoying the journey is a critical thing too, right?
definitely, definitely. I'd enjoy it, try and embrace it where you can. I was lucky that I was in a position, in a way, you're right. I was lucky that I was forced, given no choice, and given no choice, I chose the right path. It's funny. The other thing I meant to say, when I was 450 pounds, I know there's been a lot of discussion at the moment about the as Olympic, and I was, and I said to, I think it might have been Amy Berger, I think I said on Twitter, like, if they'd have offered me that, I'd have snatched their hand off. I'm not sorry to say that. I would have snatched their hand off at 450 pounds. And yeah, I enjoyed the journey. And yeah, I've learned a lot about myself. But I would have still taken the as Olympic if I could have done at the time. So I don't blame people if they do take it. If they go, I'm on that and it works for them. It's not a, it's only a band aid, really. It'll only get you so far. But at least if they do that, whatever works for them. Don't be, I don't think anyone should be,
Or a
feel any
band or
less.
sleeve or
No,
band
don't feel
sleeve
any
gastric
less.
bypass.
Yeah, whatever,
Like people have
whatever
to make
works.
a decision for themselves. No one, there's no room for judgments. Go, hey, if it's working for you. But there's a lot of people have buyer's remorse when they realize, oh, there isn't an easy way out. Gastric
No,
bypass is not an easy way out when you can only eat
no,
like
you've
this
still
much
got,
food and you still get that addiction. It's like you're a heroin addict and you can only shoot like one drop of
yeah,
heroin. It's like that's not going to do a heck of a lot for you. It
yeah,
really, when you look at the addiction stuff, and that's what I love. You talk about these things of food addiction and staying on
yeah,
track and what works and what doesn't work and self-experimentation really is saying, okay, even if it's not popular and Brian's going to get mad at me, I'm going to try this and see what happens. Great, it
yeah,
works. I'm happy for you no matter what happens, right? Because you're on the journey and we're on that lifelong journey of
exactly.
and it may be just saying I'm not getting involved in BS anymore. I see people like yesterday, everyone's fighting on Twitter, picking on someone that probably deserved to be picked on in a way, but I don't want to jump into that fray. And it's just not, there's nothing positive that comes out of it. One thing that
Yeah,
happened that was impactful for me is, because I have insight because I meet with everyone individually also, but we had a community meeting and one of the ladies was really struggling the last week, kind of like what you said, she's at work and her boss is a jerk. They have deadlines, everyone's stressed out, and she has a meltdown. And then she goes and eats cookies because she's stressed and depressed and, all that. And she's a poorly controlled diabetic, but we're in the middle of a Zoom conference like this with 20 people on there. And, when I was talking about something, she goes, Doctor, can I interrupt you for just a second? And everyone cheered for her. No, I'm just kidding. But she goes, I have to say something that's been bugging me for a while. I go, yeah, yeah, please. And she said the lady's name and said, hey, you know what? I've noticed that you've been working so hard and you look fantastic. I just want to tell you that your hard work is paying off and that you look fantastic. You're glowing. Your skin looks good. There's a huge difference in you from when you started this a little while ago. And that the other lady starts glowing and started like
yeah,
tears coming to her eyes because she felt so happy because she was at the end of her journey. Like she was like, forget this, man. I'm stressed out. I'm tense. I want cookies. And now she's been doing great since then. But when she said that to that other lady, uh, I looked at everyone and every single face was smiling and happy, like
yeah,
rubbing their arms, like, oh, I got
yeah,
goosebumps. This is great. Like,
yeah,
what a moment of humanity of saying, hey, you're doing a good job
yeah,
and you can keep going. And that's just what that drives you along. It's just like anything. It's funny. My friend says, yeah, you're on a diet and you're doing all these things and you're exercising and nothing, you don't see any difference. And then you go, forget it. I'm done. I'm not going to the gym anymore. And someone said, wow, you look great. Have you been working out? Oh, I'm going to the gym. See ya. Right.
yeah,
Because then you're like, it's paying off. But when you feel like you're just digging sand and nothing's happening, then you'll forget like what you were doing. When you're
yeah.
gaining weight, you're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm gaining weight. What is wrong with me? And you start to looking, like you're saying, pulling different levers and stuff. So, Ken, I got to ask you again, what's life's best medicine for you?
Perseverance, resilience, keep going, keep going, keep going.
I think that's it. And then enjoying the journey too and your
Enjoying the
perseverance. Say,
journey.
oh, you're on this walk and you can stop and look at the cows growing. You can go and like
Exactly.
those things. you may not burn a lot of calories doing that, but you're lowering your stress hormones, you're thinking, and you're going,
Yeah,
wow, this is kind of cool. I'm seeing nature, I'm seeing things get, like life goes on,
yeah.
And
Yeah,
so that's
and my
awesome. So
local cancer shop is delighted for all the. So I'll plug them that if anyone wants 3X, 4X size clothes, there's plenty available now. They've all gone to my local cancer shop, and they sell them and use it for cancer support. So I do that all the time to try and get my clothes. So I'm buying clothes. In fact, I tell you one story. I bought a suit a few weeks ago, um, and the weather was so terrible. It was a linen suit, and I didn't get a chance to use it. So I put it in the cupboard, and I left it there, and came back to use it this week when we got a bit of nice weather, and the jacket was too big. So I had to send the jacket back and bring in a smaller, 4 inch smaller size jacket. That couldn't have had any better result than that.
yeah, that's you're happy spending that money to take in your clothes, right? To get smaller clothes, that's always good money.
It is.
So
It
Ken, if
is.
people want to track you down or follow you, how do they find you?
Calorglan Ken on Twitter. That's where to find me. I sell nothing else but good vibes.
Awesome, man. Hey, it's so great to spend this hour
Lovely
with
to
you. I
speak to you.
appreciate your time, and we'll get this out on Low Carb MD and Life's Best Medicine because it's a combination of both. When we talked about all these other things on Low Carb MD, people didn't want to hear it. They want to hear about like life journeys and all that. But I'm telling you, if you don't want to hear it, you're probably the one who needs to hear it the most. Really,
Exactly.
honestly, that's it. The people who get it. And you may sit back and go, wow, Ken's been through a lot and he's kind of adjusted and he's kind of looked up looked up in the sky and go, what's going to happen to me if this is the real thing? And all these things we go through in life and we just don't look at it. And I think as a doctor, I'm faced with it all the time. So I think about these things a lot more. And I think there's if we drill down, there's a lot of strength for ourselves in grace and forgiveness and not attacking other people and fighting with everyone and being a jerk and throwing your credentials around. I think there's definite benefit of saying, I'm just gonna go for a walk and look at the cows. Like when you say that, I feel peace already. So
Exactly.
everyone be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Ken is a gold standard of perseverance and like really authenticity. I think that's one thing is when people see authenticity, right, with our scars and go, look, here's my struggles, here's what I've been through, and the battle scars. Like we try to hide those things, and I see patients all the time who are ashamed of their past, and that's what you came out of that. You built that. I mean, you were born into a bad family, or people didn't love you, maybe, or alcoholism or mental illness. All these things we go through, and it's getting worse. But perseverance, like stepping through and go, okay, I can't be like that person was. They were a disaster. What do I do differently? And I think we just have to learn and hopefully we're the good example that people want to follow rather than looking at us and going, nah, I don't want to be like that person when I grow up.
What do
So
they
Ken,
say,
thank you
Brian?
so much.
Nobody's
Great seeing
beyond
you.
help.
Yeah,
Take
no one's
care.
beyond hope. No one's beyond help. That's all.
Take
This is the
take
man
care.
who gave us our tagline for low carb MD.
Take care.
Uh-oh, Ken. I can't find my Jack, you can cut this part. I can't my mouse cursor is gone. I can't stop with Ken. Here. Oh, that's weird. Oh, there it is. I'll stop recording. Yeah, my mouse
This
was
can
it
go in the
froze. It wouldn't
DVD.
move.
This can go in the DVD package.
Yeah, that would go in the package of things screwing up. But hey, thanks so much, man. Awesome. I'm
My
so happy
pleasure.
for you.
Great to speak to you. Great to speak
And
to you.
never
Don't get
be
enough.
never be concerned that people are gonna get pissed at you because they get pissed at me because I'm like they'll get pissed at me for this. I mean it happens. You go, okay, it's real. One way to tell Ken is it doesn't work for him when it's working. Like if
Yeah.
someone's vegan and is working, I'm not gonna like argue with them. Like if your religion works, I'm not gonna argue with you. If
No,
your
exactly.
philosophy works, it's like okay. If you're a train wreck, though, I may say, hey, you may want to think about something else. And so, like, you're gonna give people hope or sitting there going, screw this, it's not working. Well, maybe I'll cut my fat back a little bit. I tell
Yeah.
people that all the time. Dial back the fat. Like you don't need to have your ketones to be 7. Just try to, go for a
Yeah.
walk and enjoy life and watch the stress and all those things. And so that's been my focus this year really is looking at that and the effects of stress. I just gave an hour-long talk on stress and sleep and loneliness. You might as well smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Your mortality is going to be higher, plus you're going to have a crappy time on earth. So enjoy
Yeah.
yourself and laugh
Exactly.
and have fun. Like what you're doing is going, I'm going to enjoy the process and screw it up and we figure it out.
Brilliant.
So go
Brian,
enjoy your
thanks a million.
Friday.
I
All
will.
right,
Enjoy your day.
blessings to you,
Take
man.
care.
All right, good
And
seeing you. Take care.
take care. Bye now. Bye. Bye.
Now I got to deal with Tro for a while. thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.